glad to introduce Congressman Tim Walberg from Michigan, who serves on the House Energy and Commerce Committee, is the co-chair of the Rural Broadband Caucus. Has been a great friend to the broadband industry and community of trying to find ways to help us break through the barriers, streamline the permitting, speed the ability to build a network, and to help reduce the cost that comes with delay and sometimes unreasonable fees. Mm-hmm. And so we appreciate what you're doing. But before we start our conversation, if you don't mind, tell everyone here about your district, the people, the place that you represent, how you got into public service, and then we can go from there.
Well, Chip, it's good to be back with you. And frankly, I'd be just happy if we just ended right now with that opening introduction. And you could go back to enjoying the fruits of your labors out there or something. No, it's good to be back with you. I went out the same year you retired.
Yes.
I went out the hard way, defeated for my reelection. I mean, after serving one whole long term, they threw me out. And that's how much trouble I could get in one term, I guess. But it's one of those experiences where you say, the people make decisions. You represent them, they decide what to do. And 2008 was not the best year for Republicans. 2006 wasn't that strong either. I came in with 13 Republicans for my first term and then went out right away, but then came back in 2010 when things had changed a bit and term limits actually functioned. They had limited me, and then they decided to limit the guy who beat me and put me back in. And since then, I've had the privilege of staying in. This is my 8th term in Congress. Serving on Energy and Commerce Committee fits very well with my district. My district is, right now, it's the entire southern border of Michigan. I'm there to keep out all Buckeyes. And if you're a Buckeye, tough.
Yeah.
You know, you could always move across the line and be where the national champions, undefeated Wolverines are. I got to use it while I can, you know? And then the Hoosiers. And I'm not all that hot about keeping Hoosiers out of my district, but Notre Dame has been a challenge because I was raised by a father who was a Big Ten guy. I was raised on the south side of Chicago as we used to call it, you know? And he said, Tim, it's okay. I'm a Christian. You're a Christian. It's okay to hate two things. What's that, Dad? New York Yankees and Notre Dame. So with plenty of people loving Notre Dame in my new district, which was Fred Upton's portion of Fred Upton's old district, his southern portion, I have had to acquiesce to the fact that there are Baptist pastors with Notre Dame paraphernalia in their office. What's that about? But we're growing with the task. But that district is literally the energy district of the state. And I like to think because of the energy providers like MEC and others that put broadband on the map. In fact, broadband, I can hardly say it, I'm so excited, to my house a week and a half before COVID shut us down. I didn't have broadband. Living out in the country, Tipton, Michigan, in fact, in the suburbs of Tipton, Michigan. It's okay. Most people don't know where that's at either. But I love being out in the country. But man, if I had not had broadband for all of the Zooms, meetings that we had, committee meetings, markups online from my house, it wouldn't have functioned. So I got a quick primer into the expansive nature and ability of what broadband can bring to society in general. And of course, now being able to talk with my farmers. It's a heavy agricultural district as well as connected with the auto industry functions also. So it's very diverse, but energy and communications are major components of my district. So I'm delighted at what you do in all of the industry and the impact that you make, and it's only going to expand. When I talk to those farmers and I get irritated with them and say, don't use that expression, I'm just a dumb farmer. There ain't no dumb farmers out there. If you're going to make it in the agriculture community today, and having to have capabilities that come from satellite, the internet, broadband capabilities for your farms, for your combines, for your tractors in doing the type of farming that you do today. It's important that we keep moving this forward. So to be a member of the Rural Broadband Caucus, a co-chairman of that, but also co-chairman of the 5G and Beyond Caucus. I'm just catching up to 5G. The Beyond, I'm still going to learn as a co-chairman of that. But we have to have that. And then being on Energy and Commerce, Telecom Subcommittee, and also the Education and Workforce Committee. I sit on that committee as well. And all of that is touched by what you do. So it's good to be with you, Chip.
Well, Congressman, thank you. And talk a little bit, Congress is, like the country, a divided place.
I hadn't noticed that. Or you're not talking not simply about our conference.
Not,
Okay.
yes. The divisions, I guess, the fractures are everywhere.
Yeah.
But on broadband, it's one place that we seem to have united as a country around, both the private investment, the public investment, connecting all parts of the country, rural America, the unserved, underserved areas. Talk a little bit about the priorities of the Broadband Caucus, your priorities. You have an act to make sure that the investments on the public side go to the right places, and it's called the PLAN Act. And if you don't mind, talk about the caucus, some of the work, priorities, and any legislation that you think will help make the investment more effective.
Yeah. It's broadband is not partisan. We all need it. Democrat constituencies want it, wherever they might be. Republican constituencies want it, wherever we might be. Rural, urban, suburban, we all need it. And it's interesting when I get into my old district, surrounded Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti, Michigan, on three sides. I say a hug Debbie Dingle on three sides. And but that area was not Republican. But in Saline, Dexter, Chelsea, suburbs, they didn't have broadband capabilities in many cases. So educational issues were of concern when COVID hit. So that was a progressive Democrat area, but then just going a few miles south of that into Monroe County, for instance, heavy agricultural, yet they needed it as well for all they do with their custom farming and the applications. So the PLAN Act, which I had hoped, I got in today and Allie tells me that my bill isn't coming up today for a vote. It'll be put off. I think there's some budget issues going on, whatever. Who would have thought? But I guess it's been moved back a couple, 3 weeks. But that really says what we, in a bipartisan fashion, in the Rural Broadband Caucus, bipartisan caucus, recognize with the fact that we can't waste the funds that are being put there. A lot of investment has gone in, and we're grateful for that. And then we've seen, some of the mapping and things that have been terribly wrong, and we've started to get those fixed. And we've come in our committee to discuss the idea that, while we want to upgrade those areas that have broadband now with newer technology, there's still plenty of us that don't have any. And we need to get it there first. So that's why we need the plan for a Broadband Act, where we do that in a consistent fashion that makes sense and that we don't waste what's going on. Then you think about 100 different programs being administered by 15 different agencies across the spectrum. We've got to consolidate that so that we don't waste time, we don't waste energy, we don't waste resources, and we get deployment as quickly as possible. So that's where our caucus comes together, and I hope we can continue to work that way.
Earlier in the session, the Energy and Commerce Committee passed the American Broadband Deployment Act, trying to move barriers, streamline permitting, help our industry cross the railroad tracks to be able to close the digital divide.
Okay, it's over, folks.
This is where we
That's the beauty of broadband. You're never in the dark.
Yeah. And But talk a little bit about the American Broadband Deployment Act, the principles behind it, the mission. Our membership has worked to create a broadband-ready city, broadband city checklist that really kind of hits on just fundamental principles of how you can respond to a permit within 30 days. How can you have innovative batching, a streamlining of the permit process? How can you have innovative, least disruptive ways to, whether it's micro trenching where you don't disrupt the road, the infrastructure, the right of way, all the different types of things, and how we can restore whatever disruption is our industry does as quickly as possible. But some of those best practices that if we can have a common language, whether it's in your district or in Mississippi or in urban, suburban areas, that really will help the investment go further, faster, and at a lower cost. So talk a little bit about the Deployment Act.
Yeah, the Deployment Act, I'm glad we were able to pass it out of committee. It did not come out in a bipartisan fashion. That's the problem. So my Democrat colleagues feel like we ought to move much more slowly when we deal with environmental concerns. I think Republicans, we want to make sure our local governments are taken care of, but I think we did that in that act. And so we're going to have to keep working toward a solution. Because it's kind of like, Eisenhower putting in the interstate system for the necessity of making sure that if we ever did have to defend our own country on its own soil, we could get from east to west, north to south as readily as possible. Well, internet, with what we're doing right now, we have to have the same type of impact. And so we have to get things in the ground. We have to get things on the poles. We have to get satellites in the atmosphere. We have to move forward as quickly as possible. And I think, Chip, with AI now, something else I'm trying to learn in my advanced years, with AI, the capabilities of dealing with permitting, not only having best case scenarios and best practices to work with, but with AI, we can find out what those are more quickly. We can tailor those to individual situations in local communities. So I say to my Democrat colleagues, let's use it. Let's make sure we don't destroy the environment. I'm a conservative. I believe the conservatives ought to be good stewards. We shouldn't destroy things, but we should be capable of using things to the best benefit of people. And certainly broadband, the capabilities we have that are expanding our world and allowing us to lead if we don't stifle our own creativity, innovation, ingenuity, and capabilities by dragging our feet unnecessarily. I think with AI capabilities, we can figure out what's best in dealing with environmental concerns in a particular area. In Michigan, surrounded by water on the three sides, beautiful, beautiful state. You're all welcome to come. But we can deal with the environmental issues. We can deal with the marshlands. John Dingell and I worked heavily on the marshlands on Lake Erie so we could use them for environmental purposes, but hunting purposes, recreational purposes. We can do the same with broadband. And I think we just need to get off our own turf mentality and say, how can we come together, reduce the time for licensing? Let's make sure locals and states have their ability to get the information as quickly as possible, understanding what we want to do. Let's look at the environment, find out how it's been done in other places, best practices, and get her done. And I think we'll all be better off for it.
You had mentioned that you're on the Education and Workforce Committee. Earlier today, we announced that INCOMPAS is establishing a Center for AI, Public Policy and Responsibility. And a lot of the leaders, thought leaders, both industry, government, academics, that we were talking to on the panel, talked about how AI can really provide tremendous benefit on workforce training, on education, on individualized tutoring and educational opportunities, no matter where you are, no matter what your income is, to really give educational opportunity and all the potential good that can come to an individual and to a town, a city, a district, or a state. Talk to us a little bit of how you see AI and education and workforce and the work that you're doing.
Yeah. AI is scary. I mean, it can ruin things, but it also can make things more successful in a quicker fashion without redoing everything all over again. AI can provide for a student in a classroom who wants to get into the information industry the capabilities, expanding research to the point they come out already prepared from some of the greatest innovation opportunities that are going. We can find means by which we can train new workers in the field or students in the classroom using case histories and putting them in settings whereby they can experience it before they actually have to climb a tower. It's amazing what we can produce if we, and we have to control it. And I think that's where government has to have a light touch. We can't let it control us. But when I talk with people in the industry, in cyber, in telecommunications, and they say, this is almost the next best thing to sliced bread because it has cut down our time in getting solutions and developing things exponentially. And yes, it scares us how much information we can get. And that's why we always need to keep the human element in, the reason that says, that sounds interesting, but it doesn't compute in my mind that it's actually true. Well, that's where I think we can see the danger of AI become the value of AI as we combine it with the capabilities that the humans can bring to the table as well. And so in education and workforce, looking at this, we have to find means by which we can ramp up the speed by which we train people. We have to get to our parents and let them know you don't have to feel like you've been a failure as a parent if your child doesn't go to the University of Michigan, a national champion, undefeated school. They can get into an industry going to our community colleges, to apprenticeship programs, and hopefully we get the short-term Pell expanded so we can even enhance that further and get people in your industry onto the job in the field as quickly as possible with far more information and training capabilities than we've ever had before. So it excites me to think about the fact that that little computer I carry around with an apple on the back of it has so much capabilities, but when you add AI to it in the future, amazing things that we can expand. And with China pushing us, they haven't gone over us yet. We have to find means by which we stay ahead. 5G, 6G, and beyond. And then every component part with it.
As we talk about education and workforce and AI and the exciting possibilities that come with it, we had an earlier panel today about the broadband workforce. So think fiber splicers, cloud technicians, tower, every part of how we build and deploy all the advanced networks of every technology has acute shortages right now of the workforce. We were told this morning 200,000 fewer workers than are needed and demanded right now as we build out the networks. And so any way that our members can work with you in coalition with other broadband industry associations on workforce, as we have a historic level of both public funding and private funding to connect every American, there are a lot of good jobs, $100,000 jobs to splice fiber and manage the deployment and the towers. Climb a tower.
I left heading to the airport this morning, Chip, early. I got to the bend in a road heading out to actual civilization from my house. And there were 3 MEC, Midwest Energy and Communications trucks already working that morning on some problem. As far as I know, I still had my broadband, but they were out there working. And I was thinking, wow, this is a situation where it used to say plumbers, electricians, You always want them. You always need them. Well, now you need these communications people. They had the buckets, so they were prepared. I saw they were digging around the pole for some reason, probably looking for some splicing problem. But nonetheless, these are people that are highly trained, and I'm sure some of those there were making six figures easily, doing work that they love to do, and people love to experience the results of their work.
Yeah, I was sitting here thinking, Fred Upton, his great legacy on the Energy and Commerce Committee, what he's done for Michigan. The University of Michigan, we begrudgingly give you praise for the national championship and Coach Harbaugh to finally get there. But the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor is also, they were the home of the next generation internet.
Mm-hmm.
Really important in the research networks, the early research networks of the internet. And as we try to build out our AI center, we want to work with the University of Mississippi, the University of Arizona, other regional university hubs, both on the research, the curriculum, the benefits of AI, the workforce training of all of the different applications in AI. We would love to work with the University of Michigan or any of the other community colleges and educational institutions in your state and district.
Well, that'd be great. I mean, we're seeing some of that already happen. I think of Adrian College in my district. The president of Adrian College, by chance, was on a plane heading somewhere, and the vice president of Google was sitting next to him. They got talking about what the real world of IT needed. That resulted in something that was written up in the New York Times a few months back called RISE, where you have companies like Google who will come in now, set up the program for the IT of the real world, what we need day one when your student comes to work for us, and we will train your teachers, your professors, to teach that course. And that is expanding now, where even major universities are joining with smaller community colleges and private schools, private colleges, to prepare people for real world experiences. And when you have a Google or an Apple or a General Motors or a Dow Chemical who will come and say, hey, I will foot the bill to put the course together so that when your student graduates and comes and is hired by me, day one, they understand what they need to do. And so in your industry, I can't believe that there wouldn't be higher ed institutions. And even getting you back now when you're thinking about early college programs at high school level and trying to get internships for junior and seniors in high school in the professions. And these are professions. Our former governor at Michigan tried to change the term from skilled trades to professional trades, because they are. And so that type of thing of bringing your resources in and putting real courses in place that make a difference day one, I think that has to be what takes place.
Well, I look forward to working with you on a number of different issues. One last issue that's important to our membership, and it was part of the House Broadband Deployment Act, and that was a way to streamline and speed the ability for broadband companies to deploy under the railroad tracks or over the railroad track or alongside the railroad track, because that's a major barrier that blocks a lot of deployments or slows deployments. And there's a old saying about highway robbery. Sometimes there's railroad robbery, of where the fees are too exorbitant, delays are too long. We're continuing to work on a bicameral, bipartisan effort to have rail legislation that would be modeled after the state of Virginia, that has been very successful in giving shot clocks, fees that can only be based on the standard of actual cost, so that it is reasonable and cost-based. And we would love to have your support on that type of effort that would allow one infrastructure to cross another to close the digital divide.
Well, we certainly know that Bureaucracy is needed to do the work, but bureaucracy sometimes can just slow everything down. And sometimes for personal reasons. And I think that's where a shot clock comes in and says, hey, fine, do your due diligence. But again, with AI and capabilities of understanding how we've done it other places, you don't need 2 years, 3 years to do this. We ought to be able to do this 30, 60 days. We are putting ourselves behind. We're inhibiting success for our citizens, the capabilities, earning capabilities, transitions from one technology to another by slowing things down unnecessarily. And we don't like that when we see that in other countries, when we go in and we hear of bribe requirements, but I guess a slowed down time clock of regulatory issues is just as bad as a bribe at times because it costs money.
Well, I can't thank you enough for coming and speaking and being part of the Encompass Policy Summit. Thank you for your work in Congress on the Rural Broadband Caucus. And we look forward to working with you on legislation affecting the broadband deployments around the country
Thank
and
you.
in Michigan.
Yeah. Look forward to it. Chip, thank you.
Thank you.